Right. So today we'll be discussing a concept called as arrays. Right. So what is an array and how we use this array in a programming? We'll try to discuss. We try to understand this arrays. Right. So now what is an array and also why this concept we use, where this concept we use here and all we try to understand here. Now let's suppose I'm trying to write a program. Public class some array example. My class name is array example. Right. Public static void main string args right. Now here let's suppose my requirement is I want to have 10 values. I want to take 10 integer values, right? So how what you need to do here? What you need to do here? If you want to take 10 integer values and you want to operate with this 10 integer values, what you need to do here? So you need to take 10 different variables to store 10 integer values, right? So like this, int j is equal to 20. Like this I need to like this I need to take 10 different variables to store 10 different values, right? So it is very difficult to use these 10 different values, right? So whenever you want to use these 10 different values to write your programs and it is very difficult to use these values, right? So here, and if you have these many variables in your program, it is not easy to maintain all these variables. So here there is one concept is given and every programming language supports this concept. So instead of taking each and every variable, each and every data individually, right? So here each and every data individually like this, you can group all this data. You can group all this data into one, right? And you can access this data by using a single name, right? So here I have a single value and given a single name. Name is nothing but identifier, right? So this is the value which is associated by one more variable, right? One more name. So if you want to have a group of data, if you want to group the things together, so it is easy to access them, right? So it is possible. That is what called as an array. Array is nothing but a collection of data. It is a collection of data. So instead of using one variable to one value, so you can group the data, you can collect the data and you can group the data into one, and all this data can be referred by as a name, single name. So you can use a single name to refer to the data, right? So that group is called as what? That grouping the data is called as what? An array. Right? So arrays are nothing but a collection of data, right? So here, so what is the definition of this arrays? So an array is nothing but a collection of, it is a indexed collection. What does it mean? We'll see. It is an indexed collection of what? Homogeneous data. Homogeneous data means what? It allows you to add the same type of data into group. So you cannot add different types of data into one group. It is not possible, right? So if you want to add, so the data must be all integers, or it may be all strings, or it may be all booleans, or it may be all double values like this. So that is the meaning of what? Collection of data. So you can collect the different data here, and all this data can be grouped into one, and that data can be accessed by a single name. So that is the meaning of an array. Indexed collection of homogeneous data. Homogeneous means what? Similar type of data. So if you want to group, so you can group only integers or only double values or only boolean values or only string values. So like this. You cannot mix the things here. You cannot have in the group a set, I can say in a set you cannot have what? Different collection of data. So you will be grouping, you will be collecting the different data and all the data of same type. So now that is nothing but what? So that is an array. So up to now we have used the data as a unique value, a single value we have used to operate to perform some operations. Now you can use the group of data also. That group of data is called as an array, right? So already we have discussed whenever we talk about so a group of data which is referred by using a name, that is nothing but an array, right? So we have different things to be discussed here. So here whenever you want to declare, whenever you want to use this arrays, you have three things as we same here. Whenever you want to use the arrays, first they need to be declared, declaration, right? Then variables as we already discussed will have three different things. In the beginning of my classes only I have given, right? The second we'll do what? Instantiation, and third we do what? Initialization. These are the three different things, right? So these are the three different things we have with a variable. Same already we have discussed. Declaration, instantiation and initialization. Declaration is talks about what? So type and what? Having a name. So I am going to declare a variable. So this is what is the declaration. Int j, int I. So I is a variable which I am going to use and in the future, and which can store the data, and the data must be of integer type. And this is the initialization. Initialization means what? Now one I am going to store. One is the data which is stored into the memory and which can be referred by a name called as I. Now in the same way we are going to do the same thing, but the difference here is you have only one data, you have only one value as data, but here you can have what? Group of data. So to differentiate this, so to easily identify, so this is a single this is a variable which holds single value and some other variable which holds group of data. There is a simple syntax is given for us, right? So the syntax is, by seeing the syntax itself we can say, now the syntax is uses some special symbol called as what? This is the one, this symbol uses. So this is the symbol which is used. Now what is the meaning of this symbol here? Now what is the meaning of this symbol? X is a variable, X is a variable which can hold group of data, and in that group all values will have as what? Integers. So syntactical, there is a simple syntactical difference you have here. So what is the meaning of this? So this is what? Int I. This is to this means what it is going to do here? I is a variable which can store one value only, and that value is of type what? Integer. Now the same thing here, X is a variable but which can store what? A group, and that group contains what? All integer values. So this is called as what? Declaration of an array. This is called as what? Declaration of an array. So this is syntactically, this is different syntax which we have, that's it. So this X is a variable and it can point to group of integer values. So this is programmatically, whenever you come across such kind of symbol, so whenever you come across such kind of symbol, you can understand it what? So there is a group of data, and that group of data is going to referred by a name, and that group contains the data, all data of type what? Integer. Now such kind of symbol you already have in this program. Here this is the one, right? So what is the meaning of this? There is a group of data and that group contains all string values, and that group data can be accessed by using a name called as what? Args. So this is what? String array. This group is called as what? A string array, which contains string. A collection contains a collection of data which contains string values. So a collection of data which contains integer values, and that data can be accessed by using a name called as what? X. Very simple, right? So this is the difference you have in between both. So this kind of declaration indicates I am going to store some group of data, and all this collection can be accessed by using a same name. So this is what here, and you can write the syntaxes in different ways. You can write. So in other languages, this is the syntax which we write for this one, X space. This is the syntax which is used in other languages, right? Comma, right? In coming to Java, all are allowed. So you can have this one also. You can have this one also, right? Right? So all are allowed in Java. Just writing the symbol in different locations. That is only you have. So when you come across this symbol, you need to always think that you are going to access some group of data, or you are going to store some group, and that is of integer. Now these are the three different forms you can write this. All are valid in Java. Everything is valid here. But what is the most meaningful here, right? So this is the most meaningful which we always use, right? Why? Because so here you see here, this is the one which is very regularly used in other programming languages. So I am not going to group the data of type X. No. So this can be X, or this can be A, this can be B, this can be C. It can be your name or my name. It's valid. But so it is also allowed, but it is not that much meaningful. The same thing here also, right? So all are correct syntaxes. Java allows you to do all these things, but here this is a meaningful group of integers, and all are going to share a same name called as what? X, right? So this is the declaration. What is this? This is a declaration. Now what I am going to do here, right? So you need to allocate some memory for this group of data. That is called as what? Instantiation, right? Declaration means what? Declaring a variable. Now what I did here, I am saying what? I am saying I have declared a variable, and I am saying what? This is a variable which holds some group of data. This is what I did, but there is no data still exists. Now this X is not pointing to any data. No, it is simply nothing. Nothing in this, at this statement it is nothing. Simply it's not having any data. So in this state, at this moment, if you try to access this X, Java will not give the values. So unlike some other programming languages, C and all, they will give you some garbage values, but it is not the case here. Java will not give any garbage values. If the data is there, it gives it. Otherwise it stops you to accessing that variables by giving you some kind of error messages, right? So here I did only declaration, and this declaration says what type of data I am going to store. It is a group of integers. Still the data is not there. So if you want to store the data, first memory need to be allocated, right? So X is equals to what? How the memory will be allocated? So because it is not a simple variable, you have a different group here. So always whenever you come across this kind of grouping the data, we use a special syntax here where we come across new keyword here, new, right? So whenever you allocate such kind of memory, when you have group of data and memory to be allocated for that group of data, it is we have a different syntax comparing to this normal allocation. And what is this? New int of 5. What does it mean here? What does this statement mean here? Right? This means I want 5 locations. I want 5 locations where I am going to store the data of type what? Integer. In these 5 locations I am going to store the data, and all the data of type what? Integer. So there are 5 locations will be available for you. Now into these 5 locations you can store the data, 5 integer values, right? So here so what is this? This is called as new is the keyword. It is a keyword, reserved word, which is going to identify the memory. Which will identify the memory? and allocates that memory. Allocating the memory means reserves that memory to store what? 5 integer values. So it is called as instantiation, right? So what is this statement is going to do for you? This is going to allocate you, it is going to identify the memory. If the memory is available, it is going to reserve that memory for storing 5 integer values. That is in simple, right? So this is called as instantiation, right? So this is what it is going to do here. And that memory, if you want to access that memory, yes, you can give that memory a name, and this is the name I have given to this memory, right? So what is the syntax you have here? What is the syntax you have here for all these things? Let me save this program. It's fine now. Now what is the syntax you have here? Now I'm going to write a syntax for data type here. So we'll write it in Notepad. So it is, what is this? Data type and group and an identifier. Identifier is nothing but a name, right? So this is what you have, identifier, right? Instantiation, what is the syntax for this? New data type and the size. This is the syntax you have, new data type and size. And remember that these data types, already I told you, these data types can exist in two different forms: primitive data types and user defined data types. I did not introduce any user defined data types, we'll be seeing later. So this data type can be anything. It can be primitive, nothing but int x. This is primitive data type I'm using. So it can be some other, my own created data type also. When I introduce my own that data type, we'll see that, right? So this is the syntax you have. So this is the declaration, right? And this is what? Instantiation. This statement is going to allocate memory. Now where it comes to the size, size must be size here. The values which are allowed as part of size are only integer values. You cannot have any other values apart from what? Integers as part of size. Not floats, no booleans, no strings, nothing. Only integer values. Even long is also not allowed. Byte, short, int, character is also allowed here. It's fine, right? So size must be integer only, right? So this is how we are going to declare it. This is how we are going to allocate the memory for 5 memory locations. And remember this very important point, just keep in mind, later we discuss. Arrays are objects in Java. Arrays are what? Objects in Java. What is the meaning of object? We see tomorrow. Arrays are what? Objects in Java, right? So now what happened here? What happened here? Now let me put pictorially, right? So here, just I'm going to, so in the memory what is happened? Some memory will be allocated, and this memory has 5 different locations or 5 different partitions, and each location is reserved for storing what? Integer values. So these are the 5 locations which is created. This is the statement, because I have given size as 5, and these locations are used to store 5 integer values, sequential, right? Now here it's fine, and this all memory. So this is what this new keyword is doing here, right? And very interesting point here you need to understand is, this is a very key point here to understand this. So it's okay, we have declared it. Now when you declare a variable, it is not having anything to access, it is simply a variable, nothing is there. Now when you do this, right, so what it is going to do here, this statement, it is not only going to allocate you the memory by 5 locations. Into this memory it is going to write something. By defaultly the Java, whenever the Java creates a object, always remember that whenever the object is created in Java, into this memory locations, Java runtime is going to write some values. These values are called as what? Default values. So because I said this group of data is of type integers and the default value is there, I have already given these default values for integers. It is going to write all these default values into this memory location. So 5 memory locations will be written, and these 5 memory locations will be having what? The default values. So identifying the memory and reserving that memory for storing the data is called as what? Identifying the memory and allocating that memory for storing the data is called as instantiation, and giving these values, storing these values into this memory is called as what? Initialization. Initialization is nothing but what? Writing the data into that memory is called as what? Initialization. Instantiation is identifying and allocating that memory, and initialization is nothing but what? Writing the data into that memory. Now when this array is created, by defaultly it is initialized with what? 5 locations. As well it is by default it is instantiates with the 5 locations. As well it is initializing this memory with what? Default values. Now this is what this statement is going to do for you. It has instantiated as well it is initialized with what? Default values. Then x is equals to, what is the meaning of x is equal to? And all this memory will be given a name, right? Still clearly we try to understand this when I introduce what? Objects. So this complete memory will be accessed by a name called as what? This complete memory will be accessed by a name called as x. So x is the name I have given for this, and this complete memory can be accessed by a name called as what? X. It's fine. So this is what it is going to do. That is fine. But how to access these values? Whether x is pointing to 0, this one, this one, this one, this one. Now if I want to store my data into these 5 locations, how can I store my data into these 5 locations? So there are 5 locations, and into these 5 locations I can store what? 5 integer values. That's fine. But how to store the data into this location? How can I store the data into this location? Into this location, how should I identify this memory? Right? So this is a very key point here. While creating these memory spaces, the Java runtime is going to give a index to this memories. Index means what? Right? So indexes to these memories, and each will be giving it is going to give the indexes. So the index for this is 0. Always the index starts with 0th, and this is 1. This is what? 2. This is 3, and this is what? 4th. Always remember that. So while creating this object, it gives some index values to this memory locations. Index values are given to these memory locations, and if you want to access this value, now you are going to access this value by using its index position. Now if you want to access that data, or if you want to insert something into that memory, already by default these indexes are created for you, and these indexes we use to access that memory location. So how to access this memory location? Now the name of this is x, and in the x there is an index called as 0, and in that index you have a value called as what? 0 again. So x of 0 is 0, x of 1 is 1 is 0, x of 2 again 0, x of 3 again 0, right? So that is the meaning of indexed collection. Now that is the definition I have given. Array is nothing but an indexed collection of similar type of data, nothing but homogeneous data. So this is how we are going to group the data. As a programmer, you don't need to do here. It internally going to do all these things. Right? As a programmer, I am going to write these 2 things. Now what is happened? 5 memory locations are allocated. Into these 5 memory locations, it has written all integer values, and each and every location is given one index value, and that memory location can be accessed by using a name called as x. Right? Now we try to access these values. Now how to access these things? We use the name. What is the name of that memory location? The name of that memory location is x, and we use the index. Now what is the index here? 0th index. Now let's see what it is going to give me. I told you it is going to store the data also. Now let's see what it has It's what? Unnamed classes, right? It's fine now. Now just I have created group of data, and that group of data I have given a name, and by default it is given, by default the indexes are given for that group of data, and I am using a x of 0. So how, if you want to access one, we will use its name I. But this is a group, this x has a group, and that group if you want to access by using their indexes, we access it. Now I'm trying to access the value from 0. Now let's see what it is going to do. Let me first compile it. Array example.java. It's fine, no errors. Java array example. Let's see what it is going to do. See what you got there? 0. Right? Not only this, all indexes you will get the same value. All indexes you will get the same value. So x of 1, what value you have in the first location? Right? So there are 5 locations. Index starts with 0 and size -1. What is my size? 5 is the size. Right? Length -1 in simple. Now let's see what it has just. There are 5 locations, and 5 locations are filled with what? Zeros. Now if you want to override these memory locations, right? So you can overwrite. So what I want to store? 10 I want to store. 10 I want to store. Where I want to store this 10? I want to store this 10 into the first location of that array. First location of that array I want to store 10. Let's see what is the value. So what I did here. So what is this operation again is said as? What is this operation is said as? Initialization. Storing the data into what? Memory location. Initializing. And I am storing the data into what? X of 1. Now let's see what it is going to do. Let me run this. So see there it is giving 10. Now let us print all these again. Now remaining memory locations still have 0, but the first location has what? 10, right? So this is what we have here, right? Just we write to simply identify, just to separation purpose I am writing this. Before after. Right? Still that those remaining indexes has the same values, zeros. I did not modify them. Now if you want to modify them, absolutely can do. Right? You do this, what you do? X of 0th location. I want to store. What I want to store inside this location? I want to store 1. Again 01, second location, want to store 20. Third location, I want to store 30. Fourth location, I want to store 40. Right? 1, 10, 20, 30, 40. Simple. Now I have overwritten all the memories, all these memory locations from zeros to what? My required data. Now I can see 1, 10, 20, 30, 40. Okay. Right? So is it okay? Yes, yes. What about others? Yes. Right? So this is what you have. Now there is generally you can use. So if I want to access the data, do I need to write these many statements? Absolutely. So is it the same thing I need to do here? Do I need to write these many system.out.println? Yes, absolutely correct. X is a local variable, you must initialize it 100%. So right, there is no difference between I and J's. I is a local variable, already I told you, right? Whatever the variables which you have declared inside a method, they are local variables and you must initialize them. Without initializing them, you cannot use this. This is also a variable. The difference is that can store you only one value, this can store a group of values. That is the only difference you have. Like this, you can have float array which stores all float values. You can have double array which stores all double values. You can have string array in the main method. You can see that which stores are what? String values. Character array you can have, absolutely. So this is a local variable. X is a local variable but can store group of integers. Now if I want to access all these things, do I need to really write that one? No. You can we will generally use iterative loops here. Yes, all will have different memories but sequence memory locations, right? Now I'm going to do here. Now my array index starts with 0. My array index starts with what? 0. And I want to iterate that array. I want to loop through this array until its size. What is its size? Less than size. So 0 to 4. This will be 0 to 4 index value. And I'm going to increment the index value by 1 each time. Each iteration I'm going to increment this index by 1. So what I'm going to do here now? Simple. Very simple to do this. Now I want to iterate through my array and I want to print it. System.out.println of, what is it? X is my array and I want to access each index of this X. So what happens here? Now we'll see this. What is the meaning of this for loop? What is the meaning of this for loop? When it starts executing, index value is 0 and then it checks the condition. Yes, it is correct. It is 0 less than 5 and it enters into the loop and it starts here X of 0. Now I am printing it. X of 0 is what? You will get 1. Then once it is printed, it goes up and index will be incremented by 1. So 0 becomes 1, right? And it is checks the condition. 1 is less than 5. It's true. Again comes down and it gets the value from what? First index. Like this loop will be iterated for 0 to 4 times. When index becomes 5, it comes out. When index becomes 5, it comes out. This is how generally we use such kind of loops, because you don't know if it is 5. Yes, if it is 5, I have written 5 system.out.println. If it is more, hundreds, yes, absolutely you can have the size with 100, thousands, you can have absolutely. Then is it possible to get the data like system.out.println, right? You can, but it is a bit complex. Now see this, the output will be same, but the way I am getting the output is different. Output will be same because just I am extracting the data from that memory location by using some kind of index and by using some one iterative statement, right? So this is what now always starts with 0 and less than the size. Now if my size is more, if I don't know the size, then what is the case? If I don't know the size, then what is the case? Now is it possible for me to iterate? So what is it is going to do? It is going to try to fetch the data from 5th index also. It tries to fetch the data from what? 5th index, but there is no 5th index. Now can I do this? In my array, how many indexes are there? In my array, because size is 5, I have only 4 indexes. Now is it possible for me to access an index which is not there in my array? 5th index is not there. Is it possible for me to do this? Now what it is going to do if I try to write this statement? right? Let's see what it is going to do. Now it is stopping me. So it is not, it is saying me what? Boss, you are trying to access a array index, but actually there is no index with 5. Is it right? It is stopping me. Absolutely, it is stopping me. And your program is not completed yet. It is stopping you. Where? See here, where it is stopped. So these are printed. These are all printed, and it is allocated 1. It is stored 1 into 0. It is stored 10 into 1. It is stored 20 into 2. It is stored 30 into 3. It is stored 40 into 4. But it is unable to store 50 into 5 because there is no fifth index, and it cannot store it. There is no memory available to store this data in this particular X. No, it cannot store it. So it is stopping you to do this. The same thing, if I am trying to get the data, now there is no 10 indexes. You have only 0 to 4 indexes. Now is it going to iterate you, and is it going to give you all the data? There are no 10 spaces you have. Now it is stopping. It has executed up to 5 indexes, and it is trying to search for a 5th index. Saying what? I don't find 5th index, boss, so I cannot give you the data from that index. I'm sorry. Simply it is saying what? I'm sorry, I cannot do this for you. Right? So if I don't know the size, there is a big problem, right? So if you don't, there is one mechanism, one simple variable is given for us, by using which, if you don't know the size also, you can work on this. So what is that? X dot length. What it is going to do here? If X size is 5, it is going to take 5 here. If X size is 10, it is going to take 10 here. If X size is 20, it is going to replace with what? 20. Now what is my X size? X size is 5. So what happens here? It starts iterating from 0 and to 4. When this index becomes 5, it stops, because when index becomes 5, 5 less than 5, no, it is not correct. It comes out, right? X dot length. Remember, this is a very important point. So how you know about the length of your array? Now if you want to see this, just you can print it, right? I'm going to print here. I'm going to print here. What is this? X dot length. What is this? This is the length of array. Let's see here what it is going to do for you. We got 5. If I increase it this length to what? If I increase this length to 6, what it is going to do here? See, length is 6, but I have filled the data into 5 locations, and the 6th location is having what? The default data, because I have initialized it with what? 5 locations. I have initialized it only 5 locations. See here, 0 to 4. I did not initialize it the 5th location, so it is 0 only, right? So this is what? Length, to identify the length of an array, right? So whatever I did here, so all this you can do in a single statement, right? No need to write 2 statements for this. So you can make use of a single statement. What is the meaning of this? Declaration and assigning the values you can do in the single statement. What is this? Int X group of data is equals to what? New int of size 10, or let me try to change this. Why should I always use integers? Float f is equal to new float of 10. So what is the meaning of this? There is a group of data. There is a group, and there is a collection of floats, and how many number of floats you want to collect, you want to group. 10 number of floats I want to group, right? 10 number of floats I want to group. Now if you don't initialize, as I told you, what will be the value there? And it is created you 10 memory locations by using each memory location will be given an index by defaultly always starts with 0, and that address, that memory that can be accessed with a name called as what, f. And f of 0, what is the value we'll have here, right? What it is, what it has, what is happened internally here. So how we have 5 locations, the same way it has created you what, 10 locations, 1 2 3 like this, and each location has given an index, and this index starts with what, again 0. This is what the index, like this you will have 10 locations. This index starts with 0, and not only that, it is going to write the data into this. As we discussed, default value for float is 0.0, and this memory is referred by a name called as what, f. 10 locations. Don't just, I'm drawing a rough diagram for of this, and this will be referred by f. This is referred by f, all indexes, right? F of 0, f of 1, f of 2, f of 3, f of 4, like this. And you can access only 0 to 9 indexes, remember. Now I'm trying to access f of 0. As we discussed, the value will be there, right? So what is the value you have in this? What is the value you have in this? The value you have in this is 0.0. F of, this is a static text I want to print, 0. F of 0 equals to, and the value of that. This will be printed as it is, because I have put this into double quotations. As it is, it will be printed, and this will print the value inside it. There is a huge difference is there in between both statements. See, f of 0 is 0.0. If you want to print all the values like this, you can write a simple for loop. Now index, again, it's not integer, always integers only will have as indexes, starts with 0, right? Index less than f dot length, right? Index plus plus. Simple, standard mechanism, very standard mechanism to access. Now in this place, I am not always going to get what, 0. I am going to get the value of index. Just simple concatenation. So I want to see the values. That's it. Now let's see. All are having what? Zeros only. Default values. Right? Each index is having zeros. Now if you want to see some different data, absolutely you can see it. You want to have some different data inside this. Now you need to override that memory locations. Whatever the data which is already there, you need to rewrite that memory location. You need to rewrite some other your data into that memory location. Let's suppose I want to initialize it with I'm going to take one more for loop instead of writing individually like previously. Now I'm going to write what I'm going to do here, f of index. Into the each index of f, I want to store the values. Now I will store index value itself. So what is it is going to store? You can store whatever you want to have. So when index is 0, into the f of 0 it is going to store 0. When index is 1, into f of 1 it is going to store 1. Try to understand this. What I am trying to do, I am storing the data into this. When index is 0, so what is the meaning of this? F of 0. And into the f of 0 I am trying to store the value. 0 will be stored into f of 0. Right? Index becomes 1. It will be stored into f of 1. Index becomes 2. It will be stored into f of 2. 3 stored into f of 3. And when you try to get it, you will see all 0 to 9 numbers. No, I did not save this program, it seems. Still no. Why? Because I am getting the data in from 0th index. No, it's not. It is always giving me what? The data from 0th index. No, I don't want the data from always 0th index. I want the data from all indexes. Right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now if I comment this for loop, you will see always each index will have default values. Right? Each index will have a default values because I did not initialize it. The default values are given by the Java itself. Now I have initialized my that array with my own data, and you can see your own data now. Okay. Same thing. Previous one and this one both are same, but it is group of integers. It is group of float values. That's it. But you have 10 indexes, and if you don't know the length, just we can use dot length. F dot length. Right? So this will be iterating. This for loop will be iterates from starts from 0 to 9 iterations because length is 10. So when index reaches to 10, it is going to stop it, and with each iteration it is going to store the value into this index, and the same index value I am storing it. That's your choice. What value you want to store? Absolutely, that is your choice. Right? Just for example, I have stored this value. If you want to store all hundreds, you can store. So each iteration it is going to store all hundreds into this. Everything will be having the same value, 100. Each index will have the same value. So this for loop I am using to initialize my array. Initializing means what? Rewriting. And this for loop I am using to extract the data from that array. Now we use indexes. So this for loop is for initializing, and this for loop is for extracting. Right? Is it okay? Fine. Right? So this is how we write this arrays, group of data. Right? And right, it's fine here. And instead of this, you have provided with an automated mechanism. Right? Instead of writing this much big syntax here. So what I'm doing here? Now I'm creating my array. Right? I'm creating my array. I'm declaring my array. Then I'm allocating some size to this array. I have created my array, and I have specified how much like length I want to have for this array, and then after I'm storing my data into this array. It's a big thing I'm doing here. Big complex logic I have written. So this is what it is: declaration and specifying how many memory locations you want to have, and after that it is going to insert the default values. Then after this I have taken a for loop to insert my own data into that memory locations. It is very big. So it's a very big operation. So all these operations can be written by using a simple statement. A single statement can do all these things. That means creation of array, and at the time of creating the array itself, if you want to store your data like this, simple. While I'm creating my variable, here only I'm initializing my data. This is what very basically I'm doing. Can I do the same thing here? While declaring a variable itself, I want to give the data, but it is not a simple, it is a group. Is it possible for me to do this? While declaring itself, I want to store the values also. Right? Now you can do this. Now group of data of type integers, Now you can give the values by using a special symbol called as what? This is the one. Now inside this you can pass the data. Whatever you want to pass it. Right? So you want to pass, and the data must be of what? What type of data you must have? Only integer. See this. Now here directly you can give the data. Now I am going to give the data like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20. How much size is there for my array? Size is nothing but the data. How many elements you have? There are 6 elements. So the size is 6. So what I did here? It is going to internally it is going to create the array for you with 6 sizes, right? 6 length, and this index starts with what? 0 to 5. The index starts with 0 to 5. When the length is 6, the indexes are 0 to 5. Not only that, it is going to write the data into that memory locations. What is that? 0th index of your array contains 15. First index of your array contains 16, 17, second index, third index, fourth index and fifth index. And this array will be accessed with a name called as what? A. Simple. Whatever I did in these 5 statements, whatever I did in these 5 different statements, I did in a single statement. It is possible to do it. So it is like a normal variable, how we are creating and initializing it. This is also possible with what? Arrays. Absolutely you can do. So you can create the group and you can initialize with your required data. Now if you want to access this, again you go for what? Simple for loop. Right? Now I don't need to modify this for loop. Just simple modifications, not complete. Just I need to change the name of my array. Wherever I have F, just take it as what? A. Now it works. It works because I want to get the data from what? A. Now let me comment all this previous code so that I can see only this part. So that I can see only this part of code. Right? Compiled successfully, no errors. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, right? So this is a very simple statement which is given for us to initialize, to declare, instantiate as well initialize, and this initialization will be with your own data. Right? You can do this by using this simple statement. Absolutely, it works. But you need to have the data of only integer. You cannot take the floats here. Now if I take a float, what it is going to do for me? Is it going to allow me to do this? No. It's not allowing you to do this. You said you are going to group the data and the data is of type integers, then it is not going to allow you to have any other data inside this. No, it stops you to do it. No double value is allowed there. Right? No float value is allowed there. No long value is allowed there. No strings, no booleans. But you can have bytes, because bytes can be converted into what? Integer values. Right? So this is what you can do here. So in a single statement you can perform all these operations, whatever I have performed by using some 4 to 5 lines of code. But if you want to perform this, you need to know the data. If you don't know the data, what you want to group, you cannot do this. And if you have some simple, like some less data, then you can do it. If you have 100 elements, it is big complex. Then in that case, is going with for loop is better. Is it okay? Concept is same, but different ways of doing it. The concept is same, underlying concept is same, but the different ways of doing it. This is the one more way you have. So when you have this, We don't specify, we don't use any new keyword, we don't use any uh, data type, we don't use any size, we don't give anything here. Directly it is going to do all these things for you. Just we give the data, no size, nothing. We simply give the data, and this data is referred by a name A. Okay guys, is it complex or is it simple? If you have any doubts, you can ask so that I can move. Fine. Waiting from some other replace. Yes, different memory addresses they will have. They will understand that, don't worry. Yes. Practice is required obviously, because the others are having some bit knowledge in the programming. Like the others, they are doing their BTech graduation. So they know some programming. So they can understand it. But some others definitely need to practice. That is obvious. Definitely. These diagrams helps you. These diagrams helps you to remember this concept in simple way. So whenever you have such kind of concepts, you need to imagine, you need to draw your own images. That is always. Right? So this is what. Each and every memory location is different. Each and every memory location will have its own data. We'll understand that. So these arrays, whatever we have discussed, can be exist in multi dimensions. So whatever we discussed, they are very simple. But they can exist in different dimensions also. Right? We'll see what is these dimensions mean. This is a bit complex concept, but try to understand this. If you don't understand also, later you will be understanding in some other classes. Right? So we call as multi-dimensional arrays. Right? So multi-dimensional array is nothing but in simple I can say array of arrays, group of some other groups. Right? So I am going to create a group and I am going to make one group inside it. That means what here? This is what here. In simple I am representing. Right? So group of groups we can do here. So I am going to take one big memory location. Inside this, let's suppose, just this is not exactly correct diagram, but in such a way. So here I have, in this memory location I want to have what? In this memory location I want to have some other group, one more group of data. In this I want to have one more group of data. Right? So like this. So like this you can create. If you want to have inside this one more group of data, you can do it. So like this. Inside this one more group. So like this you can group the things. Group, one big container, one big memory location contains small memory location. Inside this, one more. Right, like this, group of groups. That is multi-dimensional array. It's a simple diagram to explain you. Right. So this is also possible. You can do it. So in this memory location, instead of storing a single value, in this memory location, you can have what? Some group of data. Some group of data you can have here. Guru was started with right? So this is what it is going to do. So these kind of arrays are called as what? Multi-dimensional arrays. Right? So you can have these multi-dimensional arrays. Their syntax is same as this one, but how many groups you want to have, how many dimensions you want to have. So this represents 2 dimensions. This represents what? 2 dimensions. So array inside the other array, 2 dimensions. Right? So inside one array I am going to have other array. The 2 dimensions, right? Like this you can have multiple. You can go for 3 dimensions. So array, inside that one more array. One big array, this is the one big array. Inside this I am going to have one more group. Inside that group I am going to have one more group. Absolutely, you can go for, keep on, you can go for what? Big, like this. 4 dimensions, 3 dimensions, right? 2 dimensions, single dimension. Whatever we discussed up to now, they are single dimension. Most probably you will be working with, most of the cases you will be working with single dimensions, and like you may come across what, double 2 dimensions. Most of the cases you will come across what, a single dimension, right? So like this you will have. Then how to work with these groups here? So some name, again I'm going to give a name. So here in both directions I'm going to store what, integer values only. Int I is equals to, so this is what called as 2-dimensional array which stores all integer values only. Now I'm going to have what, this is declaration, new keyword, int of what, 2, and here 2, right? So what is the meaning of this? Now in pictorial, if you want to represent it in simple, but this is not exact diagram, you can represent it in some other way that is very simple to understand. Now what is this? I said in my array there are 2 indexes. So in my array there are 2 indexes. This is the one, and each index has again one array with 2 more indexes. Inside this you have one more array, and this array will have what, 2 more indexes. Here also as well, here also. That is what actually. Right, in some other format I can represent, but this is not correct representation, but still you can understand. Nothing but, so generally people says, generally for easy understanding purpose, these are said as what, rows, and these are said as columns. That means 2 rows, and each row has 2 number of columns. Each row has what, 2 number of columns. So I am going to represent it in the table format, that is called as rows and columns are said as what, table format. So 2 rows, the first size represents what, 2 rows, and the second size represents 2 columns, right? So what is the index of rows? Rows index will be 0 and 1. What is the index of columns? Again starts with 0 and 1. This is the column index. Then what is this partition? This is one cell. What is this cell is going to access? How this cell is going to access? This cell is said as 0, 0. 0th row, 0th column. This cell is said as 0th row, first column. This cell is said as 0th row, no, first row, 0th column. This one is said as first row, first column. This is easy representation, but it is not in the memory. In the memory you can see this, but it is easy to understand. So if you want to access the data will be stored here. Like all zeros will be stored here. This is the 1 0, default value is 1 0, one more 0, and here you have one more 0. But this 0, how to access that memory location? Now we need to use both indexes, not single index now. This is multi-dimensional. Now I need to use both indexes. What both indexes have? One is 0, one is 1. Now here is also the same here. What is that? Here you have, here in this picture you can see the same. 0 is the main array size, and first is, main array size is what? 0 and 1. 0th index and 1 first index, and this array is child array. Its size is 0 and what? 1. And this child array is what? 0 and 1. Right? So Now how to access these memory locations? Now values are stored here. What is the values are stored? All zeros, default values. 0, 0, 0 and 0. Right? And this complete name is given. What is the name we have given here? I. The name for this is, I have given the name. This memory, complete memory, is accessed by a name called as, what is it? I. Now how to access this now? If you want to get the values, if you want to get this value, I have 0, and inside this I have one more 0, two indexes. I have 0, comma 0, like this. I have 0, comma 0, not comma, generally we will use. I have 0th index, and from that one more index is there, 0th index. Now I will get 0. I have 0th index 1. I have first index 0. First 1. Now this is how you will access. This is multi-dimensional. Now how to access them? Now let's see here how to access them. System.out.println. Println of, what is it? I is the name, but it is the main array size, and from that main array there is a child array. Its index is what? 0. 0 is the main size, main array size, and its child array size is what? 0. Now let's see what it is going to give me. Now the value is stored inside there. No, this is not the program, right? It is multi-dimensional array. I compiled the previous one. Very big name. Generally we don't use these much big names because they are not easy to access. Where is the problem? Public static void main. Everything looks fine. Okay, there is a wrong I have X. There is a dot. What is the problem? It's fine. Program is fine, but I executed by using dot. You should not have that, right? 0. Now this is what here. Now let us get all the values from all indexes. So you have 4 values, 2 into 2, 4 indexes. You have 4 indexes, and each index has, each value has to access with 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Okay, fine. Right, so here. Right, I have 0, 0, I have 0, 1, I have 1, 0, and I have 1, 1. Right, so this is, if you want to represent, if you want to remember in the form of rows and columns, it's okay, fine, but it is not correct to remember in the form of rows and columns. Now what I'm going to do here, let compile this, execute this. You have all zeros. Right, now if I want to insert the data into this memory locations, now how can I insert the data into this memory locations? I of 0 and one more 0 is equals to, I want to write some 100 into this. Absolutely. Now you can write all the memory locations in the same way. First location, first cell, 0th value, first cell, right? It's 1, 1. So I'm going to write 4 here, 3 here, 2 inside this. If I want to get the data, now by default values, after the default values, I have overridden the memories. So we already seen variable can be initialized with multiple values, multiple times. Right? First it has zeros, then I have overwritten that memory with my own values, and then later you can do this operation multiple times. Not correct. Right? If you want to rewrite it, rewrite this memory location, n number of times you can do. If you want to rewrite it again with some other data, you can do it. So right, I'm going to do it with 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the first class we have discussed. I think somebody also asked me some doubt on this. No, you can write a number of times into that memory location. See, the same memory location is going to replace it with new data always. Right? So this is what you have. This is multi-dimensional array. Erase in erase. Lots of things to be discussed actually related to this multi-dimensional arrays. Right? But still some other concept you need to understand so that you will understand more clearly about these things. Right? Now if I want to print the data, so if I have a big size multi-dimensional array, if I want to print the data, I have a array with 100 elements like this. Two values. It is previously I have used a for loop. Then how can I get the data from these 2 dimensions by using a for loop? Is it possible for me to get the data by using a for loop from this? How to write a for loop for this? Right? You can absolutely do this for int some row index. It's not correct, but for understanding purpose I am writing row index starts with what? 0 and row index less than row index less than what? I dot length. If you don't understand also, no problem. And I'm going to increase my row index. So row indexes are 2 row indexes are there. One is with 0, one is with 1. Now inside this each row I have what? Inside each row I have columns. Now how to get the columns here? So if you want to get the columns, you need to have one more for loop with what? Int column index, call index. Again column indexes also starts with 0. Nested for loop. Somebody asked that day, is it possible to write nested loops? Yes, absolutely can write. What is that? It is less than. No, it is less than what now? We'll try to write later. Call index plus plus. So column indexes starts with what? 0. So each row has 2 columns. And how to get the column index? That each row has what? 2 columns. So this is how you get row. Just row value dot length. Each row's length. What is the meaning of this? Each row. In the I, get me the each row length. Each row length is nothing but what? Columns. Now I am going to print the values. How to print the values now? Row and column. System dot out dot print ln of I of row index and column index. Okay, fine. I will correct it. nested loop. Now let's see what it is going to do. I think everywhere it's fine now. Now it is what? First it enters into this, row index becomes 0, and it's less than what? Length also, because 2 is the length of rows. It enters in, now when it enters in, column index becomes 0, and column index is also less than 2 here, because each row has 2 length. 0, then it is going to here, row index has 0, column index has 0, it prints 0 and 0, then it goes here, column index increases by 1, now still row index is 0. Right, when it comes out from inner for loop, then it goes for outer for loop again. Right, just let me run this actually. For open, for close, for open, but for is not closed. This is main close. Right, so openings and closings must be matched. This is a for loop close, this is the one more for loop close, this is the main method close, this is class close. That is the error it is saying. You did not close 100, 200, 300, 400, because I have initialized them too. So this is how you are going to do it. Right, rows and columns. For rows 1 for loop, for columns 1 for loop. And to get the data we use row and column. Right, so this is what multi-dimensional is. Right, again we will discuss about them when we have, but we need to see some other concept. We need to learn some other concept. Is it okay, guys? I think you are comfortable with single dimensional arrays, but you will be having some dots in multiple dimensions because it is complex to represent. Right, so what about this session? Right, so do you have any doubts? Guys, do you have any doubts? Right, good. So somebody is asking what is, okay, let me stop this recordings.